The Deputy Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Dr. Edie Ziblim. And when we're in Lagos, spoke to you. Now we're in Ghana, and it's great to see you back home.
Good to see you.
Okay, so let's. And you have received some backlash after that conversation we had in Nigeria about the one region, one theater. People saying that, okay, that's, you've toned down on the initial promise. The initial promise was that these theaters were going to be built. Tell me what you make of the backlash as well.
I'm not sure if I will call it backlash. I think we are in a democracy and people express their opinion and you have to respect that. I think the point that I tried to make in Nigeria, and which is still relevant, is that when we sat down to do our manifesto, the objective was to at least let people appreciate the importance that this president and this party attaches to the creative arts industry. And so when we talked about constructing, that will pursue the construction of theaters in all 10 regions. We were really thinking along the lines of creating a platform for people in the industry to have where they can go and perform. Now, nobody's running away from any campaign promise. When we say 10, we'll pursue the construction of 10 theaters across the country. What people should be asking is, how many have you done? How many are there? And do you think you can accomplish that by 4 years or in your 8 years? So I still believe that this president and this government will come through with our manifesto promise. I told you in Lagos that Kofrodo will be done this year, hopefully by November. Western region is almost 60–70% complete. We are working assiduously with Ministry of Finance to see how we can push that through.
So you think that the people who are saying that the initial promise was that we're going to have fresh theaters is not valid?
Well, I think this morning I was engaged with some interview, and the point I made then, and which I will repeat here, is that even if somebody thought that we're going to do new theaters, the logic behind a government, going into a city like Ofrodua, and there's this huge theater, being started by the previous government, and you want to abandon that and do a new theater, it doesn't make sense. It's not judicious use of the country's scarce resources. So what we said was that where we have, the Center for Cultures being, built, we're going to complete them and we're going to upgrade them to meet the purpose for which we want them to serve. Now, where you go to regions
the question I've been hearing is that, didn't you know all of these initially when you were making these promises, that there was an edifice that was being built in Koforidia that had not been completed?
So I've gone back severally to look at the manifesto, the clause on theaters. We said we will pursue the construction. We didn't say we're going to do new theaters in all 10 regions. We'll pursue the construction. So interpretation can mean where you find one ongoing, you pursue it. Where there is none, you initiate and then you construct.
So is it an issue of communication lapses, or it is the fact that now we are making it look like we didn't understand what you were saying, or the message didn't just...
I don't think it's fair for me or for anybody to say that the public didn't understand what we were saying. For me, the purpose and the ultimate goal is to create opportunities all across the 10 regions for people to be able to perform. Now, if that will be on the platform of the existing cultural center that we're going to upgrade and expand, so be it. The point still remains that you don't want to go in and waste resources where there is already existing ongoing theaters being constructed. You pursue that.
So let's come to a finality on this. And again, I ask, is it an issue of we not getting the message, or it's that you've gone back to the table and realized that this is not feasible, so let's find a shortcut, or let's look for another means?
I don't know if you will call it a shortcut. I think that the manifesto promise was very clear, that will pursue the construction of theaters in all 10 regions.
So we didn't get the message right.
Now, as to somebody want to say new theaters, original theaters, we'll start building theaters, that is interpretation, and people have, they are entitled to their opinion. My position, and I think that's the position of the minister and the government, is that the president wants to see in all 10 regions opportunity for cultural displays, creative arts, performances to take place. How we come about that, the manifesto said we'll do it in 10 regions. Where we find existing ones, we'll complete them. Where there is none, we'll start and we'll try and complete them. So I don't think anybody is, splitting hairs here. At the end of the day, the question is whether this government is committed in creating opportunity for the creative arts industry to have, a space to perform. Whether they come out in new regional theater form or whether they come out in the government completing the existing ones, I think the end, will in the end justify it.
Finally, another issue that was pulled out of that interview is that you didn't tell us when you mounted the stage to campaign that it won't take you 4 years to complete this. In my interview, you said that you might do 6 before the end of 2020. You're not sure that you do all 10 by the end of 2020.
I don't think if you go to the manifesto, we really put timelines on this.
We voted for you for 4 years.
Oh yes, yeah, and so we are in the 4 years. This is our second year, and we are almost through the second year. What Ghanaians should know is that if by 2020 we are not able to do all 10, Ghanaians should be rest assured that if given the second chance, and I know they will give us a second chance, this president will complete it. To be realistic, we are not at a point where I can say that in 4 years, in this 4 years, first term of this president, we'll be able to do that. And I'm just being realistic about it. But in the end, this president will likely be given an 8-year mandate by the people of Ghana. They have given him 4 years. If they extend, I think that we'll continue with that objective of getting all the regional capitals with theaters.